Hello and welcome, dear students. In today's program, we are going to discuss an important innovation of teaching, that is Flanders interaction analysis. The objectives of today's lecture will be the concept of Flanders interaction analysis, understand various categories of Flanders interaction analysis, to understand procedure of Flanders interaction analysis, and to know about the uses of Flanders interaction analysis. Dear students, first of all, let us understand the concept of Flanders interaction analysis. Classroom communication is a vital ingredient in the instructional and learning process in the school environment. It is as necessary as food is a prerequisite for healthy growth. The quality and quantity of teacher-student interaction is a critical dimension of effective classroom teaching. The term interaction implies an action, a reaction, or a mutual or reciprocal influence which may be between individuals, example, people, teacher-people in classroom setting, or between materials and individuals or groups. An interaction is usually inferred from the behavior of persons in the environment being studied. The behavior may be verbal or non-verbal and can be classified as being predominantly cognitive, effective, or controlling in nature. Interaction analysis is an analytical observation scheme that gives an insight into what a teacher does while teaching. It is a systematic observation that represents a useful means of identifying, studying, classifying, and measuring specific variables as the teacher and his/her students interact with an instructional learning situation. It uses a system of categories to encode and quantify classroom behavior of the teacher and the students. The purpose of developing the observational system is that a teacher can be trained to use it for analyzing classroom behavior, for planning and studying his/her teaching activities in order to create more effective classroom learning. Interaction analysis as an observational system captures the verbal behavior of teachers and pupils that is directly related to the social emotional climate of the classroom. Interaction analysis is a process of encoding and decoding the study pattern of teaching and learning. In the coding process, categories of classifying statements are established, a code symbol is assigned to each category, and a trained analyst interprets the display of coded data and reconstructs the original events on the basis of the encoded data, even though he may not have been present when data were collected. Interaction analysis is used as a technique capturing qualitative and quantitative dimensions of teachers' verbal behavior in the classroom. Category system of interaction analysis was developed by Ned A. Flanders in the year 1959. That is why this technique of teacher training has been named after Flanders. The Flanders system is an observation tool used to classify the verbal behavior of teachers and pupils as they interact in the classroom. Dear students, let's now discuss categories of interaction. There are 10 categories in the system which are divided into 3 major sections: A. Teacher talk, B. Pupil talk, C. Silence or confusion. Out of the 10 categories in the system evolved by Ned Flanders, 7 categories are assigned to the teacher talk and 2 to student talk, and the 10th category classify pauses, short periods of silence, and talk that is confusing or noisy. The 7 categories assigned to teacher talk are again divided into indirect and direct influence. Indirect influence encourages student participation and freedom of action, and direct influence increases the active control of the teacher and often aims at conformity and compliance. Direct influence tends to increase the teacher's activity and restrains students' behavior. The net effect is less freedom of action for the students. The division of student talk into categories 8 to 9 provides a clue to the nature of freedom given to the students. Usually, but not necessarily, an excessive or above average pattern of direct teacher influence is associated with more student talk. An above average indirect pattern is associated with more student talk, and this will be of self-initiated type. The purpose of category 10 is to record pauses, silences, or periods of silence or confusion. That is, an environment in which none teacher or student is seen showing any communication. Now students, a brief description of the 10 categories of Flanders interaction analysis or section 1. In section 1, we are having teacher talk, and in teacher talk, two types of behaviors are number 1, indirect talk, and number 2, direct talk. In indirect influence, there are different types of behaviors which are number 1, accepting feelings of the students, 2, praises or encourages, 3, accepting people's ideas, and 4, asking questions. And in direct influence, there are 3 categories or 3 behaviors, that is lecturing, giving directions, and criticizing. Then in section 2, means student talk, we are having number 1, people give response, number 2, pupils initiate talk. Then the final category or third section, that is silence or confusion. Dear students, let us now discuss all the 3 sections one by one. Section 1 means teacher's behavior. In teacher's behavior, as already mentioned, there are indirect influence and direct influence. Indirect influence. The first 4 categories are related to indirect talk of the teacher. They are accepting people's behavior. Here, teacher recognizes and accepts the feelings of pupils. He also directs these feelings in the manner conducive to learning. Then 2, praises or encourages. The teacher praises the students in different situations when his teaching in the classroom goes. The teacher uses many reinforcement words like good, fine, excellent, correct, very good, etc. for this purpose. He maintains very democratic and enjoying atmosphere in the class for this purpose. Then 3, accepting people's ideas or using their ideas. In this category, the ideas expressed by pupils are accepted by the teacher if they are correct. If pupil gives any suggestion which is good, that suggestion is repeated by the teacher in his own style, and then these ideas and suggestions are applied into teaching. Now 4, asking questions. The teacher puts questions in the class and the students are expected to give the answers. The questions may be put at the initial stage called previous knowledge testing questions, or the questions may be put during the teaching for the purpose of sectional recapitulation, or the questions may be put at the post-teaching stage, which is called comprehensive test questions. Now students, let us discuss category B, that is direct influence. First behavior of the teacher is lecturing. This is the fifth category of the system. It is the verbal communication that is used by the teacher to communicate facts, information or principles to the pupils. Explanation of various concepts is also given by the teacher through his behavior. Now, sixth, giving commands or directions. During teaching, the teacher gives directions which the students have to follow. Sometimes he gives commands or orders which the students are expected to comply. This communication is direct in nature, and when the pupils follow these directions, interaction between the teacher and the student takes place. Seventh, criticizing. In order to correct incomplete or unsuitable responses of the pupils, the teacher criticizes them in the class. He dominates the scene by asking questions with why, how and when, etc. Now, students section second, that is students behavior or students talk. In this category, the students behaviors which we are going to discuss are: number 1, Pupils Response. The pupils fully participate in the teaching learning process by giving answers to the questions put by teachers. Here, student gives answers according to the directions given along with the questions. Limited freedom is given to pupils for this purpose. Now, second, pupils initiate talk. Here the students initiate talk at their own. They start putting questions to the teacher in order to seek more clarification on a topic, or they do so in order to enrich their knowledge and enhance their understanding of the topic. Now, students section third, that is silence or confusion. During teaching, the teacher sometimes observes silence for a few seconds. There may be sometimes pauses shown by the teacher, and sometimes it may be due to some confusion going on in the mind of the teacher. After this, students, let us discuss procedure for interaction. The procedure for interaction analysis involves these steps. Number 1, observation of the lesson in the classroom and recording the verbal behavior of the teacher in terms of 10 categories suggested by Flanders. Second, construction of interaction matrix table. And number 3rd, interpretation and conclusion. Let us describe these 3 steps for better comprehension. First, observation and recording of teacher's verbal behavior. The teacher starts teaching in the classroom. The observer enters into the class for where he can observe the teacher, listen to him and watch his movements without disturbing anybody. The observer is fully trained for the proper recording of the teacher's behavior. He has the code number of different categories in his mind. He observes the lesson setting there and is recording the category numbers at the speed of one category in every 3 seconds. This is known as encoding. The observer continues at the rate of 20 to 25 observations per minute, keeping his tempo as steady as possible. The category numbers are recorded in a sequence in a column. The observer also goes on writing side by side a few hints or notes regarding the unusual class events, if any. Now, students, ground rules to be observed. Before proceeding to observe the class and mark the observation in a coding chart, it is necessary to establish certain ground rules which became conventions for coding. The ground rules which are helpful to decide the proper categorization of the interaction are: number 1, when not certain in which of the two or more categories a statement belongs, choose the category that is numerically further from the category 5, with the exception of category 10. Number 2, if more than one category occurs during the 3 seconds interval, then all categories used in that interval are recorded. If no change occurs within 3 seconds, repeat the category numbers. When the teacher calls on a child by name, the observer ordinarily records as 4. Number 3, if there is discernible period of silence, record 1, 10 for every 3 seconds of silence. Laughter, board work, etc. Number 4, when the teacher repeats student's answer and if it is a correct answer, this is recorded as 2. This tells the student that he has the right answer and therefore functions as praise. Number 5, statements such as who, yes, all right, okay, which occur between 2 nines are recorded as 2. 6th, a teacher's joke which is not made at the expense of the children is a 2. If the joke makes fun of a child, then it is coded as a 7, and 8 is recorded when several students respond in unison to a narrow question. Now students, let us discuss tabulating a matrix. To tabulate these observations in a 10 by 10 matrix, the first step is to make sure that the entire series begins and ends with the same number. The convention is to add 10 to the beginning and end of the series unless 10 is already present. So our earlier series now become 10, 6, 10, 5, 1, 4, 8, 8, 2, 3, 6, 4, 8, 9, 7 and 10. The observations are now entered in a 10 by 10 matrix so that the sum of column 1 equals the sum of row 1. The sum of column 2 equals the sum of row 2, etc. The numbers are tallied in the matrix one pair at a time. The column is used for the second number and the row is used for the first number. The first pair in this case is 10 to 6. The tally is placed in row 10, column 6 cell. The second pair is 6, 10. Tally this in row 6, column 10 cell. The third pair is 10, 5. The fourth pair is 5, 1 and so on. Each pair overlaps with the next and the total number of observations means n always will be tabulated by n minus 1 tallies in the matrix. In this case, we started a series of 16 numbers and the series produces 15 tallies in the matrix. Dear students, after tabulating the matrix, let us now understand what is interpreting the matrix. Although several inferences can be drawn from the matrix, let us discuss a few of them here. Number 1, the proportion of teacher talk, people talk and silence or confusion. The proportion of tallies in column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and column 10 to the total tallies indicates how much the teacher talks, the student talks and the time spent in silence or confusion. After several years of observing, we anticipate an average of 68% teacher talk, 20% of people talk and 11% or 12% silence or confusion. Number second, the ratio between indirect influence and direct influence. The sum of column 1, 2, 3, 4 divided by the sum of column 5, 6, 7 gives the ratio. If the ratio is 1 or more than 1, the teacher is said to be indirect in his behavior. This ratio therefore shows whether the teacher is more direct or indirect in his teaching. Third, the ratio between positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. The sum of column 1, 2, 3 is to be divided by the sum of column 6, 7. If the ratio is more than 1, then the teacher is said to be good. Then fourth, student participation ratio. The sum of column 8 and 9 is to be divided by total sum. The answer will reveal how much the students have participated in the teaching learning process. Fifth, steady state cells. The figure shows the steady state cells along the diagonal from the upper left to the lower right. If these cells are heavily loaded, it shows that the teacher remains in a particular category for more than 3 seconds. The cell with the highest frequency of the entire matrix is typically the 5 to 5 cell, which lies on this diagonal, indicating that the teacher frequently stays longer than 3 seconds when he provides information through lecture. Sixth, content across cell. The cells corresponding to the numbers 4 and 5 in the column and the row are known as content cross cells. If these are overloaded, they reflect the teacher's emphasis on the subject matter. Now, seventh, constructive integration cells and vicious cells. Two areas that are most sensitive to the positive and negative aspects of social skill is the teacher-student relationship. Area A might be called constructive integrative cells, while as area B is called vicious cells. The cells corresponding to numbers 1, 2 and 3 are known as constructive integration cells. Cells of numbers 6 and 7 are known as vicious cells. These cells reveal the teacher's attention to the problems of classroom management and control as distinct from concern with the subject matter. Now, dear students, after this, let us discuss precautions in the use of Flanders interaction analysis. These are the precautions which we have to take while using Flanders interaction analysis. Number 1, the classroom encoding work should be done by an observer who is familiar with the entire process and knows its limitations. Second, it is an exploratory device, therefore value judgments about good and bad teaching behaviors are to be avoided. This technique is not an evaluator device of classroom teaching. Third, the questions regarding classroom teaching can only be answered by inspecting the matrix table. The observer cannot answer the question relating to teacher's behavior. Number 4, a comparison between the two matrices can be reliability terms of behavior ratios, interaction variables and percentage of frequencies in each category and calls for frequency, but value judgment is not possible. Number 5, the accuracy of the observation depends upon the reliability of the observer. The classroom recording should be done after estimating the reliability of observers. 6th, at least 2 observers should code the classroom interaction for analyzing teaching and teacher behavior. Dear students, with this we complete our today's lecture. Hope you have enjoyed and understood well. Thank you and see you next time.